Hey y'all, so for this week's video, I watched a TED Talk by Emily Quinn, and she talked about gender identity. And I picked it because I don't really understand all that stuff too well, so I figured what better way to learn about it, because we're learning about it now, and so I figured I'd watch a TED Talk on it, and the title of her TED Talk is The Way We Think About Biological Sex is Wrong. And she gave it in November of 2018. And basically she talks about, like I said, she talks about gender, but not in a sense of like people who are going through like the transgender phases and people who identify as something else, but she specifically focused on intersex people. And how when she says there's more than two genders, she's talking about intersex people and this in between. And so I thought that was interesting. Some of the most interesting points that she brought up was there's about as many intersex people. Oh, and for intersex means that you're like a female, but you have some male parts or vice versa, from what I understood. Some of the interesting things she brought up in her TED Talk were that there's about as many redheads on the earth as there are intersex people, which is about 2% of the population. Another thing I found interesting was that the lack of knowledge we know about intersex people from what she was explaining, such as like doctors and things, where they said, oh, well, because she's a female, obviously, but she didn't have ovaries. She had testicles where her ovaries should have been. And so she would go to doctors and they'd say, well, hey, like if this happens in men where they don't drop necessarily, then you have to get surgery because that could kill you and it could be dangerous. And she chose to go against that. And, you know, she said she's had checkups and she's fine and she's doing okay. So it was very interesting, the story she told about how many times doctors had told her one thing and that she would only have a certain amount of time to live, and she surpassed that. And then she's seen the effects of her friends who are also intersex who did get the surgery and how it hurts them even more in life, whether that be socially or actually physically. She talks about that as well. A lot of the evidence she used a lot of, I said self-evidence. So like she had went through the experiences because she herself is intersex. So she had gone through a lot of the experiences, so she could talk on that. And then she talked a lot about her friends and things like that. So I would say it's a lot of first person evidence where she's gone through it and experienced it. For terminology, honestly, I keep saying it, but intersex, I had no clue what that was when she brought it up until she talked about it. So that was kind of a new thing for me. That was really the only new terminology she used that I didn't understand. She was pretty clear and spoke pretty plainly about all the other things. As for questions I would have for her, one of my biggest questions while listening to her, like I said, she's pretty open. But I want to know. She said she found out when she was 10 years old that she was intersex. I want to know how this affected her mindset growing up, because she kind of talks about it, but I wanted to like on a deeper thing, like you know, growing up, did she not feel like she was, you know, feminine enough, or did she not feel like she was, you know, accepted by females because she had this? Because she talks about how, you know, her thing is inside her, so she gets kind of graphic at some points, but she says like if you were to look at her naked, she looks like a female, like you could not tell at all. And so, but I feel like knowing that you had something different with you might change how you feel about yourself. So I want to know if she ever struggled with like depression or anything like that, that she felt different. That would be my question for her. I think my biggest question. But it was a very good TED Talk and you guys should check it out.